everybody. Welcome back to Play Like a Girl. I'm your host, Gianna Cambra, and it is episode 25 today. With us today, we have an amazing guest, and she is on the Burrillville High School women's hockey team. She recently just joined them this year as a freshman, so I'm so happy to announce that we have Sarah Anderson with us here today. Hi, Sarah. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for asking. I'm so excited that you're on the show because I actually was producing your game. So
thank you for having me on.
No problem. So I want to get right into our first question. You don't just play hockey, you also play lacrosse. So how did you get into those two sports?
I actually got into them because of my brother. I started hockey because I saw him start skating and I was like, oh, I want to do that too. That's so cool. And then it was kind of the same thing with lacrosse, just later. Mm-hmm. I started lacrosse, I think, in 5th grade. And I had always passed the ball with him in the front yard and stuff. And I was like, okay, when can I play lacrosse?
Yeah, no, it's definitely those memories that I remember when I got into softball and skating as well. I had 2 older siblings, so I always looked up to them and I wanted to do the sport because they did it.
Yeah.
But so how many years older is your brother than you are?
He's only 2 years older than me.
So he's a junior then?
Yes.
Do you watch his games when he's playing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So my brother went to NYU and he played hockey, and I just remember sitting in every single one of his games and I was like, oh my God, he's actually better than I thought he would. And it was some of the best memories of my life though. So when we were texting a little earlier, you told me that you were a defenseman as well as a forward. Which one would you say that you liked more and why?
I think I would say probably defense. I don't really know why. It's just something about it that I just like more.
Mm-hmm. Do you think you can explain the feeling?
Probably just I like protecting my goalie because when people will go after her after the whistle, I'll just stop but I still like forward though because I like having more of an opportunity to score because as a defenseman you don't have much of an opportunity you do, but at the same time you really don't.
Yeah. No, yeah, for sure. My favorite part of watching hockey is watching the defensemen defend their goalie because, I don't know, I just get so into it because obviously if someone's attacking somebody on your team, you're just going to be like, what? What are you trying to do? So which position do you think was more demanding for you?
I think probably defense. They're both very demanding, but I just think defense. Because it's just very important because in a game, before you can play offensively, you have to play defensively because if the team comes down with the puck and you have to get the puck away from them before you can go and score. So if you're thinking too far ahead and are oh, I'm going to just go score and stuff like that, but and you don't have the puck yet, they'll probably just score. You're thinking too ahead of what's already going on.
Mm-hmm, definitely. And that's something that my coaches always taught me growing up. Don't look ahead of the play, just live in the moment and play in the moment. Because if you think about what's going to happen next, you're more, it's like you're going to mess up,
Yeah. My coach was talking about this season. She was like, guys, we have to play defensively before we can play offensively.
Yeah.
So
you're more prone to making mistakes if you stay in your head during the game and think about what's going to happen next. That's what I was going to say. So we were talking about, you played a little bit of both positions. Why is it important for why is it important to get a feel for other positions of the game and know how they interact with one another?
I feel like you have to be a well-rounded player because if you know how to play forward, that's great. But let's say your defenseman like goes up to, like she rushes the puck, somebody has to drop back, and if none of the forwards out there know what they're doing, it's just going to be a mess. And so I feel like it's the same thing kind of with defense. So you kind of have to know how to play forward, and I think it's just easier because sometimes coaches will ask you what position you want to play, and you'll give them an answer but they don't really want you to answer it because they'll just kind of put you anywhere.
Mhm.
So you should just know how to play all of the positions in case that ever happens.
Yeah, no, that's definitely important for any sport, like obviously hockey, but nonetheless any other sport out there. I feel like being in constant communication with your teammates during the game is so important. Um, is there any was there a time in any of the games that you played this past season where you can think of a time where you were just constantly in communication with your teammates and everything flowed perfectly?
Yeah, I would say probably when we played Cranston because it was just like a really good game. Like we were playing really well, I feel like. Same with when we played Barrington. It was a really tough game against Barrington because we only won 2-1. But with when things were going our way, they were just flowing like super perfect, and it was pretty good. So
There's nothing like good communication from your teammates.
yeah.
So you told me that you were a part of the Rhode Island Sting. Can you tell us a little bit about them and how you got into it, how you began playing with them?
So I actually got started playing for them when I was 8 years old, and it was because the year before I was on the Woonsocket North Stars, which aren't a team anymore, but
Mhm.
I was on them. I was on that team at one point, and I had 3 other girls on the same team as me, and they all were playing partially on the Sting. And then the next season, they decided that they were going to go over there, and I was like, well, I want to go too, especially because like the founders of it were 2 Olympic gold medalists. So I was like, oh, that'd be so cool if I went over there too. And I was like, because at that age, it was also more of the social aspect too.
Yeah.
And I felt like on a boys' team, I was like, well, I'm in a girls' locker room all by myself, and I don't want to be like the only girl here because I wouldn't really go in the boys' locker room where they would all be socializing in there. And then the only time I'd really be with them was on the ice.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I think it'd just be better if I went over and played girls hockey with the girls that I already know.
Well, so what would you say is, well, firstly, let me say, switching teams is so difficult for anybody. I played on so many softball teams growing up, and I was like, what if I don't make friends where I go? What if the people that I was playing with hate me for leaving? That's such a hard thing to do, but sometimes it's for the best, which it was for you.
Yes.
But so what would you say your favorite memory from the Rhode Island Sting would have been?
I actually have 2. One of them was my first year. We actually went to New Jersey, and we went to New Jersey Devils games. I actually went to 2 of them, and we got to sit up in like the press boxes, and that was just really fun. And we also had a practice while we were down there, and it was with the New Jersey Devils coach. So I thought that was really cool. And then I want to say 2 years later, we then went to Canada, and I took a bus with the team older than me because my team didn't get a bus, but there was still a couple of girls on my team that were on the bus. And we went up, and we all like wore onesies to go up there. And we also did like these ice slides that were up there and skated on like a canal that had food trucks and stuff on it.
Wow.
While also playing in a tournament, and it was just really fun.
Yeah. Well, so that kind of sounds similar to one of my favorite memories from my career. Have you ever been to Lake Placid or not yet?
No, my team was going to, and then we decided not to.
So it's okay. If you ever have the chance to go to Lake Placid, it is one of the most fun places I've been for skating, one of the best places to go for hockey. I haven't been to Canada though, so I can't judge you based off that cover. But when I was in Lake Placid, some of my favorite memories were being on the bus with my team. But there was a hotel that had a frozen river or a frozen lake, and there was huskies, and we actually got to sit in a sled, and they like rode us around.
Oh yeah, I saw, because the team that was a year ahead of me, they went up to Lake Placid one year, and I saw that they were all doing that sled, and I was like, oh, that looks so fun.
It was it's like stuck in the back of my head. That memory is something I will never forget from a competition. So obviously this week has been huge for Rhode Island hockey.
Yeah.
Playoff week. Do you have any thoughts or inputs on the games that have happened so far for any of the teams?
I would say, well, I know that the Barrington South County game just happened, and Barrington won, and we played LaSalle in the semifinals. We lost, but it'd be kind of cool to see LaSalle with the three-peat because they won 2 years in a row, and it'd just be really cool to see them win again. But at the same time, I kind of want Barrington to win, but
we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So on Saturday when I was at that game that you were playing, obviously being a freshman, like being on that team is new to you. It was your first time like playing with them in these conditions. So what would you say was going through your head while you were playing that game?
It was kind of just all or nothing. I was like, well, it could be if we win tonight, we go on to Monday, and then we just kind of see what happens from there. Or it's we lose tonight and our season just comes to a very abrupt stop, because we would have practice every day, but it's just also very strange to go from a bunch of practices and games to nothing in a matter of a day. So I was kind of hoping that we would win so that we could play Monday, but it didn't happen, which is also okay. But
yes, it is okay. So were you nervous at all going into the game? Because I remember when I was a freshman in high school, when I was at my first like Easterns, which is like I don't know how to explain it in figure skating terms, but like Easterns leads us to nationals. So Easterns is everybody on the East Coast. So when I went to my first Easterns competition as a freshman in high school, I was terrified. And when I stepped on the ice, there was so much going through my head. But obviously, my teammates were by my side. I was comfortable with that. But I was obviously so nervous. How were you feeling? Were you nervous at all?
Yeah, I was definitely really nervous. There was a big like adrenaline rush that came with it too, because I was excited to be playing in playoffs, especially since we didn't get to play our quarterfinal game because Warwick got quarantined. So we just kind of moved right on to semifinals. So it was really nerve-wracking, and I didn't really know how to process things. I was like, the regular season just ended, and now we're already in semifinals.
Yeah.
So it was crazy, especially since the season was so short that it just came so fast.
No, that's crazy to think about also, because like usually have a little bit of practice time between the regular season and then like semifinals or playoffs or whatever. But jumping right into it is a little whoa.
Yeah.
So what do you think the most challenging aspect of that game was as an athlete? And what do you think something was that you guys could have done better as a team or as a whole?
I'm not really sure, because it was definitely a really difficult game since LaSalle was undefeated. So it was just kind of, let's hope that we win and let's just play really well. And our team was trying to get really hyped for it and stuff, but I don't really know what we could have done better. I think this season was also really rough for us because it wasn't just like the COVID. Well, it was because of the COVID stuff, but we had to quarantine twice, and it was just. So I think our team just needed to click more, and especially since we couldn't really bond much. We were working as a team, but we also didn't fully like know how to play with each other quite yet, especially since we didn't have that many games. So I think we could have done a lot of things better, but I think we played really well for what it was.
Yeah, I agree with you as well. But with that being said, go right to our commercial break, and then we'll be back to discuss a little bit more about what happened this weekend.
Okay.
Hi guys, welcome back to Play Like a Girl. We just got back from our commercial break, and with us we have Sarah. We're so excited that you're here. I just have like 2 more questions about this weekend. What is one thing that you think you'll remember from the game, or like a piece of advice that your coach gave you that you'll carry with you for the rest of the season as a high school athlete?
There's a lot of things that she said that I'm just gonna bring with me. Like, she just was happy that we got to play this season, so she was excited about that because it could have been all or nothing. Like, we almost got quarantined again because we had just played Warwick the week before.
Mhm.
So we almost got quarantined again, but luckily the girl didn't play, so we didn't have to quarantine. So we could have just been done. So she was just proud that we got to play. So there's just a lot of things that I could have taken from it, and I can't think of many off the top of my head, but there was a lot of things.
Oh, yeah, that's okay. Well, so my next thing I wanted to say was that growing up, my mom always told me you either win as a team and you lose as a team. Like, don't take what happens to heart and just live from it and learn from it. So what do you think that this statement means to you, and why is this concept so important to grasp and so important to remember as an athlete?
I would say because once the team part isn't there and you stop working as a team, things will break down and you'll probably start losing games, or there'll just be a lot of things that just happen that shouldn't really be involved with the sport, because it's all a sport that we love and play, obviously, and we're all on the same team. So once you stop playing together and think of it as more of an individual thing,
Mhm.
then things just collapse and things don't end up well.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. When I was playing softball, there's so many games that we lost, so many games that we won. But every time we lost a game, it wasn't one person that we blamed, or we didn't even blame one another. We didn't blame the coaches. We didn't blame anything that we did. We just were like, okay, we lost. Let's practice harder. Let's play harder, and let's try harder. So do you think that that is like something that your coach tells you guys?
Yeah, definitely. Because actually, one of the times that we came back from a quarantine, we only had one practice before we had a game, and one of our players was missing. So our lines were all messed up. And then we lost, and we lost against Mount, which we definitely could have beaten them. And so then once we got back in the locker room after the game, our coach was like, we have to have a really good practice these next 2 days before we play LaSalle. And then our whole team worked really hard at those 2 practices, and I think we played pretty well against LaSalle.
Yes, you did. You definitely did. I just want to mention to anybody that's watching, if you want to leave a comment for Sarah or a question for her, you definitely can, and I will send that to her way for her to answer. But since we were talking about COVID before, what do you think was the hardest thing about playing a game with the new COVID precautions?
There was definitely a lot of things that were difficult about the game. The whole mask thing, because you're breathing in your sweat the whole time, and it just doesn't feel right. And same with, sometimes we have to show up to games 85% dressed, which is just really weird, because usually you're used to going in the locker room before the game and getting ready together and getting excited about the game. But this year it just was different, and our team also dealt with a lot, because our first practice we didn't have one of our schools, and then the second practice we all showed up, we're about to get dressed, and then got told that we had to go home and quarantine.
Oh, God.
And then we came back, had 3 games, and then we had to go back on quarantine again. And then came back, had 1 practice, and then played a game, and then had a couple more practices, and played more games, and then basically went right into playoffs. So it was just...
That whole thing seems tough, From my personal, I was an athlete before COVID because obviously I'm a little older than you. But I don't know what I would have done if I was in your shoes or in your position, because I don't know. Everything is so different. I've noticed, like, working the games, producing the games that I have produced for high school hockey, I just think it's so bizarre that you guys have to come in 85% dressed and you don't take that time to get hyped up with your team before a game. That's such a big part of hockey and such a big part of any sport. Like, I just remember, like, screaming my heart out to songs before we went on the ice, and that's just, I don't know if I would have been able to do it without, I would know, I don't know if I would have been able to play without doing that with my team beforehand.
Yeah, it was definitely weird. Luckily, our home rink would let us use the locker rooms, so we could kind of get hyped up before. But some of the rinks, you would just have to walk in dressed, and then you just have to sit there and tie your skates and put your helmet on, and then you just basically get on the ice. And you didn't really have much time to do any of that. So it just, the excitement wasn't there right before. So.
And obviously you can't like scream off the top of your lungs like you do with your teammates in your parents' car on your way to the games, because they'd probably be like, "What the heck are you doing?"
Yeah.
So what would you say is one thing that you miss from your pre-COVID season or from season?
I would definitely say, since I hadn't played high school hockey like without COVID, I can't really go based off of that, but based off of travel hockey, it was really strange because this season we obviously would have to get dressed in the parking lot and stuff, or just show up completely dressed. And we also got shut down halfway, not even halfway through the season, like only a little bit through the season. And we then couldn't have any interstate games. So being the only girls team in Rhode Island, we were kind of just stuck and didn't really know what else to do. So we just had practices and then scrimmaged a couple of boys teams. But I just miss normal games in between different states and like tournaments too.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely miss that.
Well, so what were those scrimmages like when you played the boys teams?
They were strange, but we also would play teams younger than us, which was really weird because since we were U14s, there was hitting in like the boys leagues, and they also didn't want like the younger girls on the team since it's two age groups. I don't think they wanted us to play against the same age group, like 06s, because they could already hit. So we had to play like younger teams than us, which was just really weird.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, that is definitely weird. So, because I remember when we had practices, even we did scrimmages with, when I was on 18U, we would do scrimmages with like 14U and 16U girls in our league just to like get some practice in with them. And I was like, this is weird.
Yeah.
But so would you say that a lack of consistency has been like the biggest issue since COVID has arrived?
Yes, definitely.
That's so hard as like a team, you know?
Yeah, especially because at the beginning of travel season, we were allowed to have games where we didn't have to wear masks for our practice. Like we didn't have to wear masks during games or practices, and would only have to show up to the rink with them on.
Mm-hmm.
And then halfway through, while I was playing that, we just all of a sudden had to start wearing them, which was just a weird change that took a long time to get used to.
No, that would see. I remember my team had nationals in a different state, and our coach was making us train with masks on because the air was thinner there. So we were trying to get used to it. And even like those practices, I was like, I cannot do this. I was like, how are we supposed to breathe? And I can't imagine you guys playing a whole game like that.
Yeah, it's definitely strange. Like sometimes you'll just have to pull down the mask on the bench to just take a breather because it just becomes too much. You're like, this affects my breathing a lot. Like I'm breathing in my mask half the time and the sweat that's already on it, and it's just gross.
No, because even when I go to the gym and I'm not there for a whole, like I don't think I would be there for as long as you guys play a game. And I'm just like, I feel like I'm a dog. Like I am breathing like a dog because I can't get in everything that I'm trying to intake.
Yeah.
But so obviously that's a challenge in itself. And it might be the new norm, hopefully not with this vaccine that's coming out, but
yeah.
if this was the new norm, like what's a piece of advice that you would give to kids that are still trying to get used to it?
I would just say if you like during practices, just try and keep it on the whole time, like even over your nose, so that it's training your body for games too. Because I find myself sometimes I'll like put it down below my nose so that I can try and like get normal air in my body. And then during games, it's just like I'm not used to it kind of. So it just takes my breath away even more. So I would just say probably wear it the whole time over
Yeah.
your nose so that you can get used to it.
Yes, for sure. So, what are some ways that you would say that your teammates and yourself that you check on your teammates on and off the field or ice?
Well, we'll text in our group chat, and we also will sometimes, like when we were quarantined, we had Google Meets or Zoom calls and stuff, and we would go over film, and we'll just text in the group chat and kind of just get excited, especially before a game day. We'll get excited in the group chat, and then in the locker room, like when we're allowed to go in there, we'll just talk the whole time about school and kind of everything.
Yeah. No, those are some of my favorite memories, just being in a group chat in the locker room with your teammates, because there's nothing like that.
Yeah.
So why would you say it's so important to support female athletes during this day and age?
I would say because I feel like men's and boys sports just outshine the women's and girls sports completely. So I feel like when you have other female athletes influencing you, it's kind of just a little push and be like, this isn't all just for nothing. There's still a purpose to having like sports and stuff, even if it is outshined by the men's sports. So
yes, exactly. So out of everything that we've talked about, out of any team that you've played with, or any time you've stepped onto the ice or onto the lacrosse field, what would you say is your favorite memory from playing in sport throughout your entire life so far?
I don't really know. There's a lot of things that were just really exciting, but one of them was probably I had like this tournament in Cape Cod, and we went into the championship, and I remember just getting on the ice, and we were just so excited, and the parents that were all there were just cheering really loud, and then we got on the ice and we won too. So that was just really exciting.
Oh my gosh, I love Cape Cod, let me tell you. That's one of my favorite competitions on top of Lake Placid, like I told you.
Yeah, I loved that Cape Cod tournament.
Mm-hmm. Were you guys, I don't know if it's the same rink, but when we went there was like a little tent set up outside. They were selling like clam chowder and like little things. I don't know. It's probably not the same rink, but
I don't think there was. There might have been, because there were so many rinks that were involved in that tournament. So I might have just not played out of that rink, but I don't really remember there being those tents or anything. But that would have been so cool if there was.
Well, so what's your favorite place that you've traveled to for hockey?
Probably Canada. I actually have been there twice for hockey. One of them was my tournament, and then one was for my brother's tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went for my brother's, they actually flooded like the sidewalks.
Oh my God.
Along one of the roads that you could just skate on, and they actually had like a mini Zamboni that they would drive down it, and just it was really cool. Canada is definitely my favorite place that we traveled for hockey.
Yeah, that is really cool. I have this distinct memory in the back of my head. Well, I wouldn't say it's a memory. I would say it's just a story that my parents told me or my brother told me. That when him and his teammates went to Canada, we had a minivan at the time. My mom and dad took like the back seats out of the back, and they just threw their bags in there, and the kids just laid on the floor their whole way to Canada.
Yeah, and I would think like when you're especially when we were in Canada, we have like mini hockey tournaments in those rooms, and sometimes in different hotels we could have them in the hallways. If we had a whole floor just designated to like the tournament, we would have like mini hockey tournaments in the hallways and stuff, and that's just something that I could never forget.
Yeah, so that's cool. But like, because we kind of did the same thing. I didn't play hockey, but we were in the same hotel as other teams. So, and you knew which floor they were on because everybody um, they colored a little banner that they put on their door that said their team name, and it was
yeah.
yeah. And then we had little rooms that we would get ready in, and when we were walking past them, we'd be like, "Oh my God, that's Delaware," or oh my God, those are the Ice Mates. That's just something we would do.
Yeah.
It's kind of yeah. Sorry, I was just gonna say it's kind of very similar and different in certain ways.
Yeah, that's why I like having the tournaments that most of the teams are at the same hotel, because that's just kind of funny. Like when you'd walk by a different team and you'd be like, "Oh, we play them tomorrow." Like,
Oh, definitely. I remember I'd walk past people and I'd be like, "Hi," I wouldn't know what to do. But so I have one last question for you. I asked this to all my guests. Obviously, the name of this podcast is Play Like a Girl. What do you think it means to play like a girl, and why is it so important that younger generations and just everybody around?
I would probably say just playing your heart out and just putting in a lot of effort with it too would definitely be very important. And then also, I think that you just can't let people get in your way of what you want to do. So.
Hey, Sarah. Welcome back to the Play Like a Girl podcast. Our apologies for this. My name is Matthew Gillis, Director of Operations with SFBN Rhode Island, one of the hosts. Deanna apparently has lost power in her entire neighborhood.
Oh no!
So that's what caused her to cut out of the broadcast, but she was able to get a message off at least to us over here in the control room, which obviously in COVID and pandemic times is my apartment. Uh, but we wanted to, not leave everybody in the lurch of what was going on and bring things back in. And Jenna, I know, was about to wrap up the show with you. And one of the big things that we always do in wrapping up the Play Like a Girl show is to ask you what it means to play like a girl.
I would say probably just not letting anyone get in your way and just kind of keep going. Even if anyone says anything to you, you just kind of go through it and just keep playing and doing what you love.
We know that in 2020/2021, there's been so much focus on sports and especially on women's sports. We saw huge viewership number growths in the WNBA and the NWSL. There's been focus even now on women's ice hockey with the NWHL, the PWPHA, stuff that's been going on. How important is it that we're finally, maybe now, 25 years from sort of like the inception of some of these things, really putting a focus on women's sports?
Well, I mean, they've always been focused on men's sports, and there for a while there was really just no such thing as women's sports. So I think it's cool. It's a little late for that because they should have done that a little bit earlier, but I still think it's a good thing that they're finally getting out there.
I know that you and Gianna were earlier talking about the NWHL and the bubble that happened in Lake Placid and how impactful it was to play in that arena where the 1980 Olympics happened and the Miracle on Ice. Unfortunately, that bubble got burst as they had to kind of stop the tournament, before they actually got to the Isabel Cup, which would have been kind of awesome to see that happen. But hopefully, we'll get the NWHL back next year and even be bigger than it was this year.
Yeah,
And we'll see what
hopefully.
happens. But Sarah, apologies for the technical difficulties. Those are things that seem to happen. But thank you so much for being a part of this show this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you very much. That's it for this episode of Play Like a Girl. Tune in, of course, every Monday at 8 to see Play Like a Girl with host Gianna Cambria. And we wish you all a good night.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.